Yandy Smith had already endured betrayals, prison visits, and public humiliation, but nothing prepared her for this. According to rumors on the Love and Hip Hop Atlanta set, the cameras were rolling as she burst into tears, gripping Mendeecees' phone, her voice cracking as she heard what Rasheeda supposedly emailed him. Not only were the messages polite, but they were also not innocent. And what began as suspicion apparently escalated into a scene so visceral and emotional that producers nearly ceased filming entirely. According to sources, there were multiple messages sent. It was a thread filled of inside jokes, late-night check-ins, texts, seductive emojis, and according to insiders, a screenshot that made Yandy whisper, "I trusted both of you." The treachery struck like a truck. Rasheeda had always been the person Yandy referred to as her sister, and Mendeecees notices that he just sat there immobilized, as if he couldn't lie quickly enough or reveal the truth without making matters worse. According to reports, someone on set disclosed what happened, and fans are now rushing to figure out how a decade-long friendship and a marriage rebuilt after prison both began to unravel over a few texts. But it did not end there. What happens next? Even messier. It all began on a calm Tuesday as the cast prepared for another round-table scenario in the studio loft. Yandy had arrived early, dressed casually in a hoodie and jeans, sipping coffee and flipping through her phone. It was supposed to be a light sequence discussing forthcoming business deals and who's working with whom. However, behind the scenes, animosity had been brewing for weeks. Subtle behavioral alterations, unexplained stares, and uncomfortable times. Mendeecees had been distracted lately, often moving away to accept calls, laughing at messages he never shared, and tilting his phone screen just enough so Yandy couldn't see. At first, she dismissed it. They had been through too much for her to be nervous about nothing. But when his phone rang that morning and Rasheeda's name appeared on the screen twice in less than 5 minutes, her stomach constricted. This was not the first time, and all of their innocent exchanges started playing back like a horrible movie. She waited until he went to the bathroom before doing something she promised never to do again. She picked up his phone. The passcode had not changed. What? She saw something that made her stomach drop. The messages were not simply casual. Rasheeda texted a selfie late at night. Nothing shocking, but intimate enough. There were heart emoticons laughing along with inside jokes. Yandy scrolled up and saw one message that said, "You always make me feel seen." This has gone on for several weeks. She did not cry at first. She just sat there, frozen. Everyone started arriving at the scene. Cameras are rolling while the crew sets up the lights. Men return smiling, utterly ignorant. Yandy, who had spent years learning the art of keeping it together, lost it. "So, what are we doing now?" Her voice cut through the noise in the room. Everyone froze. Mendeecees turned toward her, perplexed. "What you talking about?" he inquired, still attempting to interpret her expression. She held up his phone. "You and Rasheeda. For how long?" His expression dropped. Rasheeda, who had just walked in, appeared surprised. "Wait, what?" she asked, stepping back. But Yandy wasn't looking at her. She was fixated on Mendeecees, her eyes filled with disbelief and hatred. "You called me crazy. You told me I was overthinking everything. And all this time you've been laughing at her jokes, texting her late at night as if I did not exist." She was shivering and cradling the phone as if it had physically wounded her. Mendeecees attempted to explain. "We were just talking. She contacted me about that event." Yandy cut him off. "That occurrence occurred 3 weeks ago. And are you still talking? She's sending you photographs and wishing you peace. Are you out of your mind?" Rasheeda moved forward, her voice trembling. "It was not like that, Yandy. I promise you." Unfortunately, it was too late. The trust had broken. One of the producers attempted to intervene, asking if they wanted to take a break, but Yandy dismissed everyone. "I overlooked so much for you. I forgive so much. And you let her be the one to get in my face." Her voice crackled. She sat down, hands in her lap, attempting to keep back the tears that were suddenly streaming down her face. The remainder of the cast was stunned into silence. Even Kirk, who had just arrived with a bottle of water in hand, remained silent. Scrappy mumbled something to Bambi, who shook her head slowly, obviously unhappy with how intense the situation had become. Mendeecees sat down beside Yandy, but she instantly stood up. "Do not touch me. Do not say anything to me right now. You lied to me. as did she. Rasheeda was on the edge of crying herself. I didn't mean any harm. I assumed we were just pals. But Yandy turned to her with a glare that could break glass. You made an incorrect assumption. You were meant to be my sister. You knew what we went through and how we survived, but you still thought it was acceptable to text him like that. Nobody has seen Yandy like this before, not even at the darkest circumstances of her and Mendeecees' past. This was different. This was betrayal coded with familiarity. It was not a stranger. It was someone she shared meals, grieved with, and defended both on and off camera. The producers gestured to stop recording, but the cameras remained going. One crew member later called it as the most devastating sequence we'd ever shot. It didn't even involve drama. It was grief. The room had altered. Whatever it was previously, rumors, suspicions, and energy shifts were now evident. Mendeecees did not refute the communications. Rasheeda did not deny mailing them. What hurt the most was that neither of them had told Yandy the truth until she had to find it for herself. She eventually walked away from the set, tears streaming down her cheeks. Security followed her, but she didn't require assistance. She only needed air. Back inside, no one spoke for more than 2 minutes. The quiet was so oppressive that everyone forgot they were in a show. Carly Red eventually ended the stillness. Oh, that was real. No one replied. Outside, Yandy sat on the curb. She put the hoodie over her head and sobbed quietly. Although the cameras were no longer focused on her, a close production assistant captured the audio. She said the same thing over and over. I trusted them both. I trusted them both. Rasheeda took Kirk aside and whispered something through quivering breaths. Kirk nodded slowly, his expression opaque. Scrappy approached and attempted to console the men, but even he appeared uneasy, as if he couldn't defend what had transpired. Bambi folded her arms and watched Rasheeda intently. It was evident that the women on site had established their own silent jury. Nobody was rushing to defend her. Meanwhile, producers congregated in the corner, contemplating whether to remove the footage or keep it. One of them allegedly replied, "This is raw. It's too real to cut. This is what the audience needs to witness." And they weren't wrong. That day, something irreversibly changed in Yandy, and while most cast members have sobbed on television before, no one had broken down with this type of layered. This kind of public emotional collapse wasn't about a man cheating. It was about 2 of her most trusted individuals determining that her limits didn't matter. And the repercussions was just beginning. Inside the studio, Mendeecees slumped against the wall, avoiding eye contact with everyone, his typical confidence drained from him. Yandy's expression was no longer one of anger, but of deep, cutting, paralyzing disappointment, which always hit worse than rage. He was revisiting the last few minutes in his head, every word, every tear, every breath. Nothing he could say would change the situation, and the worst part was that he knew it. Rasheeda sat on the other end of the room, blotting her eyes with a tissue provided to her by production, her hands trembling. Kirk stood silently over her, his mouth clenched tightly. Whatever they were saying was in whispers, but Kirk did not appear sympathetic. He appeared contemptuous, and no one could determine if he was disappointed or shocked. But his enthusiasm made it plain that this wasn't going to blow away, and the rest of the cast stayed uncomfortable. Scrappy Bambi was now seated with her, arms folded, and Carly remained monitoring the monitors as if she was waiting for someone to call cut. But no one did. This was too raw to interrupt. Outside, Yandy remained sitting on the curb, hood up, wiping her face with a female producer walked over and dropped down next to her, softly asking if she wanted to talk. Yandy didn't answer straight immediately, instead staring out at the parking lot as if she couldn't feel her own body. Then finally, in a quiet voice, she inquired, "How long have they been laughing behind my back?" The producer didn't know what to say. She wasn't there to give answers. She just placed a gentle hand on Yandy's shoulder and said, "We can stop filming for the day if you want." Yandy shook her head. "Let them chat. Allow the world to see it. Let the world know who they truly are." Meanwhile, inside, Kirk finally broke his silence, looking directly at Rasheeda and saying, "This ain't about you being buddies. This is what you made it look like, and that doesn't look good." Rasheeda tried to defend herself, saying the messages weren't flirty and that she never crossed a line. But when Kirk asked her point blank, "Did you ever call him your piece?" Rasheeda couldn't answer. Her mouth opened, but the words didn't come. The room shifted again. Bambi leaned forward, her voice low, but sharp. We all text each other, but we don't use hard emoticons or late-night selfies. You crossed a line, plain and simple. Rasheeda's eyes welled up with new tears, but no one moved to soothe her. Her stillness was already too audible. Mendeecees, finally someone spoke. His voice was subdued, as if he wasn't sure he should even be speaking. It wasn't really romantic. We were just vibing. She's cool. She checks in. We discuss business. It wasn't an affair. He looked around as if begging everyone to believe. His statements, however, exacerbated the situation. Carly rolled her eyes. Vibing with your wife's best friend at 1 o'clock if you don't stop. She did not even complete her sentence. She simply shook her head and returned her attention to the screen. Scrappy finally sat down and massaged his temples. The vibe in here is wrong right now. You all ruined it. This was supposed to be a relaxing scene. We now have tears, treachery, and people who appear to be strangers. In the corridor, another producer approached Yandy and whispered that Rasheeda wanted to talk. Yandy did not move. She did not blink. She just asked, why? So she can tell me it wasn't personal. It was intimate. He made her feel seen from the moment she spoke. The producer stopped and then said, they're wondering if you'll come back in. Yandy stood up slowly, wiped her face again, and said, I'll go in, but not to make peace. I want them to hear how they broke me. As she stepped back into the room, the air became thicker. Everyone stood still. Even the cameras adjusted silently, scared of disrupting whatever was about to happen. Yandy did not shout. She did not toss anything. She simply moved to the middle of the room and looked at both of them. Then she said, I ain't furious because you texted. I'm mad because you knew what I'd been through and yet decided to play in my face. She turned to Rasheeda. You called me sister. You grieved in my arms about your marriage. And I gave you advice when Rasheeda's eyes welled up again as she said, you hurt me, and you were out here telling me. Yandy sat in a corner of the corridor, her knees drawn up to her chest. A production aide gave her some water, but she declined. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Calls and SMS were most likely from friends or fans who had already heard about what had happened. She did not even inspect it. She just sat there muttering to herself, I protected her. I protected him. And they both turned. I was ashamed. In front of the camera, inside, Kirk eventually broke the stillness. He turned to Rasheeda and said, this is the same woman who protected you when you and I were going through it. You were crying on her shoulder, calling. Rasheeda did not say anything. Kirk shakes his head. You should have known better. Bambi looked over at Scrappy and muttered, this whole thing is dirty. Like really dirty. And not just like on reality TV dirty. This seems like true treachery. Scrappy nodded. It doesn't even feel like a scene anymore. It feels like we had a funeral or something. The crew began adjusting cameras to capture reaction shots and close-ups. None of it seemed staged. Nobody was acting. Even Carly, who normally leaped into turmoil for screen time, remained silent. She was looking at Rasheeda not with sympathy, but with judgment. Excessive judgment. Yandy returned a few minutes later, this time to retrieve her bag rather than rejoin the group. She did not glance at anyone. She didn't say anything, simply strolled in, got her belongings, and turned to leave again. However, just before reaching the door, she came to a halt. The hush drew her back, like gravity. She turned. I gently turned around, looked straight at Rasheeda and asked, did you ever consider how this would make me look? You knew we were recording. You knew people would see it. You knew I'd already been shamed for staying by him, and now you add this. Rasheeda eventually spoke, barely above a whisper. I did not mean to hurt you. It was dumb. I was lonely. Me and Kirk aren't. It's been good for a minute, but you're tired of feeling invisible. Mendeecees listens. He does not make judgments. I got caught up. I swear. I don't want to take him from you. Yandy scoffed. Take him? Girl. You couldn't take anything from me. I've already given everything. Years of visits, raising children alone. Do you think this about a man? No, it is about loyalty. And you broke it. Several cast members burst into tears. It seemed too genuine. Yandy's voice cracked as she spoke about loyalty, which struck a chord with everyone. Even the producers became emotional. One of the cameramen softly turned away to dry his eyes. Mendeecees stood up and finally approached Yandy. She took a step back quickly. No, don't. Not right now. Do not say anything. He nodded slowly and continued, you're right. I don't have anything to say. Not now. I need to correct it. But I don't even. Yandy glanced at him, her face blank. Perhaps you don't. Rasheeda took a step closer again. Can I say anything else? Yandy raised her hand again. Don't. I've heard enough. And the more you talk, the more it hurts. Mona Scott, the executive producer, was watching from the upstairs monitor room. She didn't generally get involved in scenes, but this one was going so wrong that even she seemed concerned. She asked her assistant, Did they not see this coming? Did they believe they were being slick? The assistant muttered, we noticed indications, but nothing like this. Not till today. Later that day, footage from the confrontation were leaked, and Mona nodded slowly. She knew the scene would go viral, but she had no idea how it would affect Yandy's real life. There were no images, just raw audio, and it was caught on a phone by someone on the set. The internet went crazy, and fans. Yandy's social media was flooded with love and support, with many saying they had always felt something was wrong between Rasheeda and Mendeecees, but no one expected it to be revealed on camera like this. Yandy, you deserve so much better. I'm crying with you. Not Rasheeda calling him her piece. That's why I can't trust anyone. Even your sisters are watching your man. Then came the clips of Yandy walking out with tears on her face, which were picked up by several blogs within hours. Shade Room. Yandy breaks after seeing her husband and closest friends secretly messaging. The headlines were nasty, and Hollywood was open. Rasheeda was caught in the center of the season's messiest betrayal. Mendeecees was hit with emotional reaction, and Yandy walked off set in tears. The harm had been done, and there was no going back. Kirk was also caught in the middle, as fans chastised him for not doing more. He issued a cryptic statement saying he was focused on family and healing, but it didn't help much. Rasheeda stayed silent on social media, not even posting a story. Yandy, on the other hand, posted a dark screen with one sentence, "Forgiveness doesn't come just because you say sorry," which received over 200,000 likes in less than a day. She seemed to know that anything she said would only make things worse. Back in the studio, producers decided to halt filming for the rest of the day when the comments were swamped with blue check marks from reality stars, celebrities, and influencers alike. The vibe was shattered, and there was no rebounding back. As Scrappy revealed in his confessional that night, I saw some. There's a lot of crazy stuff on this show, but tonight, wow, it was heartbreak. This wasn't a narrative twist. This was someone's genuine pain. No one knew what the next day would bring, but one thing was certain. But her car was observed outside at 10 o'clock a.m., and when she eventually went in, there was no need for her to say anything. Everyone understood why she was there. It wasn't to put things right. It was to finish what had begun. She sat down on the couch, gently crossing her legs, as if saving her energy. A producer approached to see if she needed anything, and she replied calmly, "Just make sure you record everything. Do not cut me off. Keep your distance. Allow it to play." Inside the main scene area, Rasheeda and Mendeecees were already seated. Kirk had not arrived, nor had Bambi. Scrappy was present, but he was over to the side, looking like he wished he wasn't. Carly strolled in late and sat down carefully, like she was ready for a funeral. The vibe was heavy again, but it wasn't as explosive as the day before. This time, it felt like everyone was simply waiting to see who would fold first. When the cameras started rolling, Yandy stared directly at both of them, her eyes clear of tears this time, and her voice was almost too calm. She explained, "I had all night to think, and I realized something. I don't expect everyone to treat me the same way I treat them. That's my mistake. But what I do demand is honesty, and you guys couldn't even give me that." Mendeecees kept his head down, and Rasheeda appeared to want to speak but didn't. Yandy said, "I've sat on this show for years seeing people cheat, lie, and act dirty. I've always believed that I and we were above it, but I suppose the camera doesn't lie. It revealed everything I needed to know." Mendeecees finally spoke up. "I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I swear on everything. It never went beyond those texts. It was stupid and foolish, but it was not true." Yandy nodded. "Maybe not to you, but it was real to me, and it was real enough for her to be brave about it. When you're the one throwing the knife, you don't get to choose how deep the cut feels." Rasheeda finally glanced up and said, "Yandy, I'm not playing the victim. I know what I did and how it appeared, but I never expected you to find out like that. I was going through my own turmoil and leaned on the wrong person. It was Yandy's. Voice hardened, and you leaned into my husband's gaze. You leaned into a line that wasn't yours to breach. You didn't just hurt me, you embarrassed me, and that's what keeps me going. Mendeecees began to say something, but Yandy interrupted him. And you? I'm tired. I'm tired of always trying to be the strong and understanding one. I gave you everything, stood by you even when others encouraged me to leave, and kept it down for years after you left. And now this is how you repay me. Mendeecees appeared shattered. I don't really have a defense. I messed up, plain and simple. I wasn't thinking about how it would look or make you feel. I became too comfortable, and that's on me. The room went still, but Yandy's eyes did not leave his face. You didn't get too comfortable. You grew careless. You showed me that I'm disposable. That's what we built can be scoffed at behind text messages and late-night chats. After a lengthy period, everyone remained quiet, waiting to see if anyone would try to apologize again, explain, defend, or soften the blow. But Yandy, she wasn't having it. I don't want your tears. I don't want your guilt. I want my dignity back. But I can't get that from any of you. So from now on, you'll be getting the version of me that isn't trying to keep the peace. You want to text. You want to send selfies and play silly games? Play them, but leave me out of it. She stood up and walked out without saying anything further. No yelling or weeping. Producers let the cameras to roll for another 30 seconds. Mendeecees sat with his face in his hands. Rasheeda wiped her cheeks again, looked at the floor for the first time in a long time, and the entire group remained seated and quiet, not even whispering. The video of Yandy reading the letters aloud, the way Mendeecees flinched as she said her piece, the tears and the silence that followed were all released this week. Clips spread like wildfire throughout social media, with admirers studying every glance, breath, and line. Memes swamped timelines, and thought pieces appeared on every blog. People debated in the comments, some blaming Mendeecees, others blaming Rasheeda, and some wondering if this would completely shatter Yandy. However, one clip stood out. She remarked, "You don't get to choose how deep the cut feels when you're the one swinging the knife." That statement was written and repeated thousands of times. It struck hard because it seemed like the truth, raw and universal. The reunion was already being arranged, and producers were scrambling. Everyone knew this storyline would be the highlight, but there were rumors that Yandy would not appear. Backstage reports stated Mendeecees was attempting to get therapy sessions allowed on camera in order to demonstrate accountability. If she did, it would be for clarity rather than closure. Rasheeda was apparently pondering whether to take a sabbatical from the next season entirely.